Arguably, for the first time, we are seeing some kind of justice meted out to some of the folks who are on the front lines of Donald Trump's so-called fake electors scheme. You may remember this scene from back in December 2020 when false Trump electors in Michigan were caught on camera trying to enter the State House to file their fake document, effectively claiming Trump should win the state's electoral votes despite losing, well, by quite a bit there. In total, all 16 of the fake electors were charged with 8 felony counts each by the Michigan Attorney General. Today, some of those people that were trying to claw their way into the State House were filmed in a different context, being read their rights and negotiating bail as part of a virtual arraignment.
Alleges that you did unlawfully conspire, combine, confederate, and agree together with Kathy Burden, Mayra Rodriguez, Meshawn Maddock, and other persons to falsely make, alter, forge, or counterfeit a public record with the intent to injure or defraud contrary to law. That is a felony that you attempted to defraud by the certificate of votes of the 2020 electors from Michigan. That is a felony, ma'am. Maximum penalty, 14 years and/or $10,000.
That's what it looks and it sounds like when the foot soldiers in the plot to steal the election face their day in court, at least the beginning of it. In addition to those charges in Michigan, we know Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis has been investigating the fake electors in her state. Now being reported she is considering charging more than a dozen individuals related to Trump's coup attempt. So if the fake elector scheme is criminal in Michigan, possibly criminal in Georgia, it seems to me it would stand to reason that it's likely criminal in the other 5 states where Republicans filed those false documents. Joining me now is Rick Hasen, professor of law at UCLA and the director of its Safeguarding Democracy project. Rick, what do you think about, obviously there's been all eyes on Jack Smith and the federal government, the Department of Justice. There's the New York case, which has nothing to do with the 2020 election. But what do you think as someone who's a scholar of democracy and election law about criminal charges against the folks in Michigan and possibly in other states?
Well, every state's got their own laws, and each state's path when it came to these fake electors looked different. At first, this looked like it was just a backstop. Like, what if we file a lawsuit and it turns out that Trump is declared the winner in our state? We need to have those electors picked, or Trump's electors might not count on a technicality. That's very different from the memo we saw coming out later on, coming from one of Trump's allies, which basically said, we know we've lost, but we're going to do this anyway because it might be a way to stall things and keep Biden from becoming president. So it's going to depend on the facts in each state, and it's also going to depend on each state's law.
You bring that up. One really interesting detail I've returned to a few times on this program is in a few states, I believe it was New Mexico and Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken, they added a caveat. Here's the one in Pennsylvania. Unlike Michigan, Pennsylvania's alternate electors are unlikely to face criminal repercussions. Because of an important legal caveat they added to their document. Pennsylvania's certificate said the votes they were casting should only be counted if a court found that they were the duly elected and qualified electors. And I find that so fascinating because in some ways it's just one sentence with a conditional clause. Well lawyered, I would say. But it's also the difference between trying to commit fraud and not trying to commit fraud.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, it might well have been very prudent for these electors to think about getting together because we've got this crazy Byzantine system of translating the people's votes into electoral college votes that get counted in Congress. And so, good lawyering would probably tell you that you want to have a backup in case Trump is declared by a court to be the winner in that state. And that does, to the extent that these fraud cases turn on people's state of mind, their intent, this does show we don't intend to break the law. We're just trying to cover ourselves in the event that there's a judicial change in the result.
Obviously, you've been writing about election law for a long time. It's an area of law that's grown more contested and thornier and higher salience, I would say. There's a really interesting piece that's been published by 2 conservative law professors. And they're sort of self-proclaimed originalists. And they're arguing that the Constitution requires Trump to be barred from office. Two prominent conservative law professors have concluded that Donald J. Trump is ineligible to be president under a provision of the Constitution that bars people who have engaged in an insurrection from holding government office. Professor William Baud summarized the article's conclusion. Donald Trump cannot be president, cannot run for president, cannot become president, cannot hold office unless 2/3 of Congress decides to grant him amnesty for his conduct on January 6th. You know, that clause has been there in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, written obviously in the wake of the Civil War and the insurrection against the Union. What do you think of this?
Well, this is the big sleeper issue. Most people are not paying attention to this, but in a number of states, there are actions already being taken, not just against Trump, but against others to try to disqualify them from serving. I think that the most important thing about this claim under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is that these issues have to get resolved pretty fast because, what happens if Trump wins the election? And then when it comes time, January 6, 2025, Democrats in Congress, let's say they control one of the House of Congress, they say, no, sorry, he's ineligible. Like that would be a huge crisis if we've had an election and Trump's been declared the winner and now we've got this legal thing that just gets pulled out. So however this gets resolved legally, I think it needs to get resolved sooner rather than later.
That's a really, really, really good point, Rick Hasen. Thank you very much.